Hey everyone, welcome back to Pretty Creepy. Today we're going to be reading stories about real home invasions. If you've been following me for a while, especially on TikTok, you already know that a home invasion is my worst fear. We're supposed to feel safe at home, and the thought of someone coming in and not knowing their intentions is the scariest thing to me. Paranormal stuff is creepy, of course, but the thought of some psycho breaking into my home is terrifying. I actually have a funny story. I used to have my own apartment in Phoenix when I was in my early 20s, and I was already creeped out living alone, but I felt pretty safe because I lived in a nice area of Phoenix. And one day I'm just minding my own business, and one of my friends messaged me on Facebook telling me how some girl who lived in my apartment complex had her apartment broken into while she was home. This had to have been like 10 years ago, maybe more, I don't know. But I think the girl was like home alone and her boyfriend was at work and she was asleep on her couch and she forgot to lock her front door. And she woke up at like 4 a.m. out of nowhere to a man in her apartment staring at her. And so she like got up and ran into her bedroom and shut the door. And in those apartments, for some reason, we didn't have locks on our bedroom doors. I mean, I didn't in my unit, so I'm going to assume that everybody else's apartment was like that too. So that was really scary to know that she like wasn't able to lock herself in her bedroom. But anyway, she ran to her room, shut the door, and she told the guy through the door, like, hey, my boyfriend is going to be home any second, because I guess he truly was. He worked the night shift and was going to be home, you know, in the early hours of the morning. And she heard the guy walking towards the front door. And so she came out of her room and went to go shut the front door, and he put his hand on the front door and said, "Are you alone?" And she was like, "No, my boyfriend is pulling in right now." And he left. So I'm really happy that nothing terrible happened to this girl. That could have gone a lot worse. That guy probably just maybe suffered from severe mental illness. But she's really lucky that he didn't do anything and he left. But I'm not going to lie to y'all, that scared me so bad, I actually ended up breaking my lease and moving back home. And I have not lived alone since. I've either lived with family members or partners. And I joke with my boyfriend all the time, like, if we ever break up, we're still gonna have to live together. Like, we can just be friends if we ever break up and live together. And he laughs and he's like, yeah, I know. Like, you could never live alone. I truly can't. It's too scary for me. All right, anyway, here are 5 creepy home invasion stories I found on the internet. So grab a drink, a snack, a blankie, and your favorite stuffed animal, and let's get creeped out. A guy who stalked me broke into my house with his buddy. I had a messed up sleep schedule, so I was awake at 3 a.m. or so. I grabbed my little dog and my phone and went to the basement. It was a little cellar almost, a trapdoor in the floor with stairs that led down to a small space with a furnace, hot water tank, etc. And got my dog and I into the crawl space. I'd had some cardboard on top of the door so they didn't see it when it was closed. I turned my phone on silent and texted my best friend asking her to call the cops for me. After the longest 15 minutes of my life, the cops eventually got there, arrested Shithead and his buddy, and came to find me. These 2 assholes had what the police described to me as a sexual assault and disposal kit. Duct tape, lube, sex toys, a handsaw, a box of heavy-duty black garbage bags, which implied intent and planning, so they went away for conspiracy to commit murder, conspiracy to commit sexual assault, breaking and entering, and something else I can't remember. The guy who actually stalked me pinned it all on his buddy. So Buddy went away for 5 years and is still in prison because he can't not act like a psycho, while my stalker served 2.5 years of his 4-year sentence. He threw his buddy under the bus and took a plea deal for himself, later got out on good behavior. I got a restraining order which he violated a couple of times right away. It had been quiet for a bit until he got a girlfriend a couple years ago. He told her his version, in which he was the victim and I was the villain who sent him to jail for nothing. So she sent me a long, nasty message telling me she'd find me and make me pay for it. So, predictably, the cops got to go talk to both of them, and I haven't heard from them since. A couple weeks before my 19th birthday, I woke up one morning around 4 a.m. while someone was trying to break my bedroom door down. I had fallen asleep with my light on after coming home tired from work. So when they came in my room, I could at least see what was happening. Not that it helped much at first. There were two guys, and one of them immediately attacked me with a hammer. So I told them to just take whatever they wanted. The other guy started to load all my electronics into a backpack. Meanwhile, my mother down the hall had woken up with the commotion and started shouting to know what's going on. She stayed in her room at least. Next moment, they both ran out of my room and shut the door on the way out, going to my mother's room. She managed to hold the door closed on them for a few seconds, giving me time to open the safe in my cupboard. 6-digit key code that I amazingly input correctly the first time, and remove my pistol. I checked her around in the chamber and went to open the door to make my way to my mother's room. As I opened the door, one of the guys turned around and ran at me with a hammer. I fired 2 shots before he could get to me and push me back into my room and onto my bed, where he held me down and tried to take my pistol while the other guy started to cut my arm and head with what turned out to be one of my mother's own kitchen knives. My mother eventually joined the fray and managed to take the knife away from the guy cutting me. Meanwhile, I was just holding on to the pistol with everything I had in me, because I knew that if one of them got control of the firearm, my mother and I would be dead. My mother froze after she took the knife away, and the guy got up, grabbing my DVD player, and knocked my TV to the ground, then hit me over the head with the DVD player. By this time, I managed to sort of wrestle my gun hand free and shouted to my mother to get out of the way for me to try and get off another shot. She rolled off of the bed, and I managed to turn the gun enough to get a shot off into the guy on top of me. It was then that they decided to bolt and grab my bag of electronics on the way out. When the cops came, they found a body with 2 gunshot wounds in my garden a few meters away from the house, and a blood trail leading away where it disappeared at a nearby road. My number one fear has always been home invasions. It's just so rude and unfair that the place you feel safest can become your biggest nightmare if pretty much anyone is determined enough to make it inside. I've heard stories of guys who have seen a woman through her window and just locked in on going back and breaking in somehow. I always lock my doors. I'll shut my shades if I'm likely to be seen changing or something. I have dogs who will bark if they hear a strange noise, but there really is just no way to stop it. If someone wants to get into your house, it's not that hard to smash a window and overpower whoever's inside. Imagine my surprise and fear when I woke up this morning and found that a completely batshit insane home invasion happened just 20 minutes from my house in the next town over, Inver Grove Heights, Minnesota. A local 29-year-old man, Samaji Jamal Clemens, broke into a home randomly in the middle of a summer afternoon to terrorize the mother and son who lived there. According to the local paper, Samaji Jamal Clemens broke into the Inver Grove Heights home on Friday afternoon and immediately went into the boy's room and told the boy it was time to die. Clemens grabbed the boy from behind and brought him into another room, where the boy's mother was, where he repeated, "It's time to die," and punched the woman in the face. When the boy tried to protect his mother, Clemens punched the boy in the head and face. The boy managed to escape and run to a neighbor, who called 911. The boy then returned with a box cutter and tried to help his mother. Clemens took the box cutter away, and as the boy tried to stop him, he stabbed the woman in the back. He sat on the woman, told the boy to look away, and then cut the woman's throat. During the assault, Clemens told the woman several times that she was going to die, saying, "Be ready to die," and "You're going to die," and "You're dying." Officers arrived shortly after and found blood all over the floor and heard the woman in a back bedroom crying for help. Clemens walked out of the back bedroom with blood all over his pants and shoes. Officers found the woman covered in blood with puncture wounds to her back and a deep cut to her throat. She received 10 stitches to her throat. What a brave little boy. Both the mother and son say the attacker was a complete stranger. The man has now been charged with attempted murder and is off the streets for now. Lock your house up and stay safe out there, people. One of my childhood homes had a balcony that was attached to both my mother's bedroom and mine via big glass doors in each of our rooms. Next to the balcony are 2 trees, one I often used to climb up and down from the balcony. One night when my brother and mother weren't home and I was about 13, I was reading in bed with a very dim reading light. I heard what sounded like something moving in one of the trees outside, but this didn't worry me as possums and bats are common in our area. Now I had thin curtains on the glass doors that separated my room and the balcony, and the doors faced out towards the street where street lamp light was always visible through my curtains. Shortly after hearing the tree rustling noises, I see a shadow slowly move past the doors, at which point I immediately turn off my reading light and freeze like a deer in headlights. The shadow is tall, so it wasn't a neighbor kid, and it wasn't my all of 5-foot mother either. The person moved slowly, creeping as though they were trying to not be noticed. They wouldn't likely be able to see into my room, but I could see them thanks to the streetlights behind them. They moved past my doors out of sight. I sat there unable to move or even think about what to do other than be absolutely still. That is, until I heard another sound. The sound of someone trying to open a glass door, my mom's door to the balcony. I didn't know if she had locked them or not, but I wasn't taking chances. I moved as quickly and as silently as I could to my bedroom door and locked it. I listened for what the person was doing now. They were still jiggling the glass door handle, but it sounded like the doors weren't opening. I felt relief. This person couldn't get in, surely. All I had to do was wait for them to realize that and they would leave, right? Well, I heard light footsteps move back along the balcony to my set of glass doors until I saw his shadow stop directly in front of them. Again, I froze. He couldn't see me. He couldn't know I can see him. I saw a shadow of a hand reach up to my door's handle and my heart stopped. Had I actually locked those doors myself today? I was out there earlier. What if I forgot? The seconds leading up to him grabbing the handle felt like an eternity, but thankfully, when this person tried to open the door, it did not open. It was locked. I sighed such a sigh of relief, I was worried he had heard it. After this, he began pacing the length of the balcony. I didn't have a mobile. The landline was at the other end of the house, but I was scared to take my eyes off of them. I was silently crying and praying that they would just leave. Then I heard him stop moving. He then said, "I could just break the glass, you know." Before I could even process this, I saw car headlights turn around the corner of my street and then stop at our property gate. My mom was home. The person on the balcony moved out of sight and I heard a loud thump as they jumped off of it. When my mom came inside, I was hysterical and was barely coherent in telling her what happened. Eventually, I got the message across and she called the police. They never found or caught anyone, but a neighbor reported a truck in the street that matched the description of a truck that had been reported recently for attempted child abductions near my school a block away. When I was 4, my parents worked long hours at a restaurant. They left my brother to babysit me until about 10:30 at night. He's 8 years older than me, so 12 years old at the time. Every night when my parents come home, they'll ring the bell and I'll run to greet them at the door with my brother. One day the bell rings, and when I open the door, instead of my parents, it's 4 guys standing there. Apparently they had been watching the house and knew the routine. They have guns and tell my brother and me to go downstairs and watch TV as one of the guys stands guard over us. They let me sit there, but they tie my brother up using his Nintendo cords. I remember going to tug at the cords on my brother's wrists. I wasn't trying to untie him, it was more out of curiosity. And the guy actually pointed his gun at me and told me to stop. When they finish going through the house, they tie us both to a beam and leave. After a little while, my brother wiggled out from the bindings and my parents came home. Cops were called and info was given to the police. They got a few pieces of jewelry and a camcorder. Okay, so let's debrief. The first story, that is just so insane to me, how the main stalker, like the ringleader of this break-in and attempted murder and sexual assault, didn't even serve his full sentence and he is now out walking around. I I would have expected more prison time for a crime like that. That is just insane. I think that people who commit crimes like this do not get enough time, but then we lock up people forever for like something as simple as like marijuana. It just doesn't make sense. It's all backwards and corrupt, okay? And the second story about the guy who was home alone with his mom and the two guys break in, that one is freaking insane. That guy is so brave for protecting himself and his mother, and he was really smart and immediately thought, to grab the gun from the safe. I'm glad they're both okay, and she is very lucky to have such a brave child like that, because it's hard to think straight when you're under pressure, but some people are good at it. Oh my God, and the third story about that guy breaking in and cutting the mom's throat and like hitting the child is absolutely insane. I am so glad that those people are okay. That guy is obviously severely mentally ill, so being locked away is exactly where he needs to be. I honestly think people like that need to just spend the rest of their days in a psychiatric unit. I'm not sure if there's any possibility of rehabilitation for somebody like that. Okay, y'all, in story number 4. When I was reading this and I read the part where he said, I could just break the glass, right? Literal chills down my spine, because the person didn't think that the intruder could see them. But then they let them know, I see you and I could just break the glass. That is actually terrifying. I would die. I would never be able to be home alone again after that, for sure. And the last story, it sounds like those intruders were truly just looking to rob the place, and I'm glad that the kids didn't get hurt. I mean, if you're gonna break in, just take everything, okay? You don't have to hurt anybody. Just take what you want and go. But anyway, I'm glad that they didn't have more sinister ideas in mind the night that they broke into their house. And I'm glad that those kids are safe. But yeah, this is why I don't like to be home alone. I don't like to be home alone. It's so scary. I could never live alone, y'all. I'm not kidding. I just can't do it. It's too scary. And it's funny because that's my worst fear, but what do? I read scary stories on the internet. And it just makes me more and more scared. But I like it, so I'm not gonna stop. But anyway, that is it for today's episode. Thank y'all so much for listening, and be sure to lock your doors. I'll talk to y'all next time.